So it is at this point that every single day there is a Welsh choir boy who either commits or tries to commit a sexual assault or rape on someone. This is just the latest story of Chenne Augustus, who had her home, or her mother's home, invaded by a Welsh choir boy who was rubbing his groin, and she then tried to storm a migrant hotel with a meat cleaver. Her mum's blind. Apparently she's blind in one eye. She was stabbed by a knife by a migrant or something like that. I'm not going to go into it because this isn't actually the crux of what I want to talk about. But the point is, it's every single time, man, right? Like, there are a lot of rapists in these migrant hotels, and that just seems to be borne out by the number of rapes. And so the protests are continuing, again, all around the country. This is Braintree, Essex. This is in Falkirk. This is in Barbican. This is in Leeds. This is the Leeds one. And then in Cannock, you have Stand Up to Racism, and in most of these places, you have Stand Up to Racism activists coming out to defend the migrants themselves. Refugees are very vulnerable people. They actually want to come and work, develop themselves, and create a better world for everyone. I mean, bro, look at this guy. Just come on. Come on. At any point, are we going to look at reality and be like, okay, I'm not sure this chap fits your narrative, right? So I'm not sure your narrative is an accurate representation of reality. I think what you're saying is just not true. As in, true meaning accurately represents reality. If snow is white is true if snow is white. If snow is not actually white, then snow is white is not true. But luckily for us, snow is white is an accurate description of reality, therefore it is true. What was it? Is they want to come and work, develop themselves, and create a better world for everybody a true description of this guy who walked into someone else's home, rubbing his groin, or any of the other rapists? There are loads, obviously. I'm not going to just go through and cover them all again. There are loads. Is this an accurate description of this guy? And I'm sorry, I just don't think it is. What you're doing is projecting communist morality onto what I think is someone who follows tribal morality, actually. I don't think he is, in fact, a communist. I think you are a communist, but that's because you're with Stand Up to Racism, and you're just a bunch of commies. And so I'm sorry, I don't think they should be welcomed and supported. I think that actually we're bringing quite terrible people in. But the thing is, Stand Up to Racism is a campaigning activist arm of the Socialist Workers' Party. Now, this is not very surprising to hear for some people, but I mean, they are just as far left as you can imagine. They're Trotskyist, anti-Stalinist, and revolutionary socialists. Now, what they are is a kind of holdover from sort of mid to late 20th century ideological schisms in communism, international communism, and they're kind of archaic at this point. They're generally fairly anachronistic. Like, it doesn't make sense that this thing exists in this time and place, because we have such a huge amount of socialism embedded in the British state at the moment. I mean, if you just look at the scope of the welfare state, like, even people who work can claim benefits if they're below a certain threshold. So we have like real merger of capitalism and socialism at the moment, and are leaning more and more on the socialism side of the scale, where just huge amounts of money are taxed from people in order to just openly redistribute it to people who the state decides are worthy. And that happens to include billions and billions and billions of pounds to foreigners who break into our country. Now, so these guys are kind of railing at the people against the system, because the system does what they want. The system is actively redistributing wealth. Now, it doesn't do what they want to the nth degree. It's not seizing the means of production and making sure that everyone is a factory worker that works on the same wage, and that we only have one brand of product in the supermarket, Soviet style. Again, they're not for Stalinism, they're for Trotskyism. That's proper communism. But But they're not for actual, they're not happy that the system isn't actual communism, but they recognise that the system is enough towards socialism to be worth defending. And so they are in active defence of the system. And if, again, don't take my word for Stand Up to Racism being a campaigning arm of Socialist Worker. This is their website. You can join the Socialist Worker Party, you donate, you can go to one of their meetings, you can read their news and analysis, which is basically, if I can't open it, okay, I'm not going to. It's basically like a website, just a news website with articles talking about commie things. And then you can look at their campaigns and join their campaigns, donate to their campaigns. Lo and behold, the first campaign there is Stand Up to Racism. It's not hidden. You can campaign against climate change, people before profit, United Against Fascism, Palestine Solidarity Campaign, Middle East and North Africa Solidarity Network, Stop the War, campaign against climate change, and blah, 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 right? And you can just click there to go straight to their website. There we go. This is, again, in no way a secret. They tell us that their campaigns are all of these things, including Stand Up to Racism. So this is just a communist organisation that is campaigning, but for some reason they're campaigning for what I think a genuinely orthodox communist would call the capitalist system. But they can see that over time the system has become sufficiently socialist for it to be worth defending. And so now they are like, yeah, no, it's actually good that the system is bringing these men in and giving them your money. This is socialism to these people, and the system is doing it sufficiently so that they will actually spend their time and money to come out and protest in favour of bringing illegal immigrants who are disproportionately rapists into the country. So it's like, right, okay, that's quite wild. But the funny thing about this is this is creating billionaires, right? So again, the old left, the post-woke left are like, oh wait, actually, woke's dead, right? We can't really be woke. We can go back to class conflict, right? Well, I mean, you could, but for some reason, Stand Up to Racism are desperate for this guy to become a billionaire on government money. And so instead of instead of campaigning against this guy, unironically, is genuinely, this is Essex tycoon Graham King, who's now worth a 1.015 billion after a 35% jump in his fortunes. So all of those illegals breaking in and the government saying, yeah, okay, well, we're going to house them in hotels and you're going to pay for the privilege. Well, this has made him an asylum billionaire, and that's great. That's my money that he's getting, right? I heard somewhere that basically all billionaires are the result of government funding, which I haven't checked into, but I saw that on Twitter. I thought, man, that does sound kind of true. So I know a lot of Elon's wealth comes from that too. So, someone can fact check me on that. But anyway, here's another example of that. And so he's raking in £4.8 million of cash payers tax a day into his business. And this is a direct result of us taking these illegals in. And so you would think, wouldn't you, that the socialists in Socialist Worker are just like, what are we doing? Are we really making sure this guy gets to be a billionaire? Are we really standing in defence of random rapist from overseas? Are we really going to put, I assume, well-meaning idiots in front of people who are genuinely afraid of being raped or stabbed or whatever in order to make this guy a billionaire? Is that what we're actually doing? And the answer is yes. That is what you're actually doing. And it's just wild to watch. This is socialism in the 21st century, is defending rapists and billionaires. Okay, I'm not a socialist. I don't want to defend rapists and billionaires. I'm actually far more interested in defending the regular people who are worried about this stuff happening in their communities. I don't want anyone in this country profiting off bringing in illegals who are definitionally criminal, who then go on to be disproportionately criminal in the worst ways as well. If it was just like, if it was petty theft or something, I'd be like, okay, that's really annoying, right? If these guys were stealing from shops or something, stealing Mars bars from shops, I'd be like, right, that's really annoying. I don't like that. I don't know why we've brought that in. But I wouldn't be like, right, okay, that's clear and present danger, right? It's like, you know, like if they were really like trivial thieves stripping copper or something, I'd be like, okay, that's really annoying. Why are we allowing them to do this? But at least it's not dangerous. At least it's not costing people's lives. At least it's not raping children. And yet that's what they're standing in defense of. So it's just so weird that they've chosen the worst people to bring in and then stand and campaign in defense of. It's in order to make sure that this guy can continue to be a billionaire. It's just, what? That's crazy. And you might think, well, I mean, is all of them? So, well, yeah, kind of, to be honest, right? For example, you have the hotel in Epping, where all of this real sort of wave has kicked off, right? So this is from the Telegraph. Migrants housed at the Bell Hotel were a financial lifeline for its owners. Oh, right. So the Bell Hotel needed these people to continue to exist. Is that what we're saying? And this was when, you know, one resident was charged with the sexual assault of a 14-year-old girl. Lawyers representing the company have said the injunction, because obviously they're trying to get them out of this hotel, would cause it financial harm because the migrants were a financial lifeline that allowed money to be reinvested in the hotel. Just 1% of rooms were occupied in August 2022. Right, okay, so the hotel is going to close without the illegal rapists being housed at taxpayer expense in it so that its owners can become super rich. Huh. I mean, I'm actually okay with it closing if it's closing or paying to have rapists there. So the guy who owns this can make tens of millions, hundreds of millions. I don't know. Because this is owned by Samani Hotels. It's not the same as this chap, Clearspring Roadie Homes. Samani Hotels, you can look up their financial statement. I mean, they seem to be doing great, to be honest. So they've got 400 million in cash, apparently. Total assets of 10 million, working capital of $1 million. And they've had, in the previous year, compared to the previous year, so this is in 2024 compared to 2023, they had a cash increase of 98%. I can't see like any of the actual data behind the paywall or whatever, but like that's incredible, isn't it? So they've doubled their cashing, the amount of cash in the business. That's going to be through the government. That's going to be through the government paying to house asylum seekers there. So oh great, and it's just at the expense of a couple of 14-year-olds, a few dozen 14-year-olds in each location, probably. Like that is insane, isn't it? And stand up to racism and like, yeah, goddamn, yeah. We need those guys to double their revenue. We need them to go from cash of 200 million to 400 million. Because otherwise, I don't know. Otherwise what? Racism? Otherwise what? Otherwise socialism fails? Like, what are we talking about here? What is the fucking goal for Socialist Worker to do this? It doesn't make sense. Like, at least from the position of someone who thinks about political, like, ideology from a left or right position, from a sort of capitalist socialist position. Like, it just doesn't make sense. And so, obviously, there are a lot of people going, well, these people just want to destroy the native population and want to exploit them while doing it. And, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying I'm not sympathetic to that argument. And, there's probably a lot of people involved who are. But, like, this guy doesn't seem that way. Right? He seems like a kind of well-meaning idiot who's being paid to be there. I mean, I don't know him. I don't know that he's not like a ragged, anti-white, hateful campaigner or anything. I don't know that he's not like a dyed-in-the-wool socialist, but let's assume that they are. What do they think that they're doing? They're like, no, we need these guys to have a massive increase. We need our asylum hotel billionaires. Like, again, I can only assume that these asylum hotel billionaires are paying a huge amount of money to stand up to racism. Like, what reason do I have to think that they're not? It's completely in their interests. I'm not saying they are. I've got no proof to connect the two, but their interests are so well aligned, and the state apparently is so socialist at this point that it would make sense that they would. But anyway, like I said, Like, I don't know what they think they're doing, right? They think that I mean, charitably, they think they're stopping racism, right? Which, I mean, I don't think they are. I think this has generated a lot more racism than there was before, frankly. But if just from the logic of their own ideology, they must think that we are a socialist system, and that's why they're in defense of it. And so they must be, in some way, completely okay with billionaire hotel owners who are using this quote crisis because otherwise they'll suffer financial harm. It must be that. And they have to be in some way conscious of this. And I guess this is just what the left is now. The left is defending rapists to enrich billionaires using the state because that's socialism to them.